everyone, this is Sunday Conversations. This is number 2, and this is with Joey. Joeysxworld, you may know from all of their art on everywhere, on your favorite records, on your t-shirts, and all your cool stuff. So I wanted to talk to Joey because he recently put up a video that was giving some studio updates on your Patreon, some of the projects that you're working on, and merch and stuff. So I thought that was interesting. I thought it would be a pretty good time to talk to you. I knew I wanted to talk to you since the beginning of this. Just didn't know when. But when you put that video up, I was like, oh, I think now's the time. So I wanted you to talk more about that, and then just pick your brain about art and your process and stuff.
Yeah, definitely. So as you said, my name's Joey, aka Joeysxworld. I made that video I feel like I haven't been super organized lately, and I was writing down all the steps and stuff to get projects out, and I was like, oh, I should make a video just going through this stuff, because I think there's a level of engagement with my stuff, but I think having a video where people can see it and kind of walk through the steps with me to get, see, oh, this is what's coming up and where it goes, I think changed up than just oh, this is a nice photo of my t-shirt, XYZ. They get to know me a little bit as a person. And I think that helps open up the door for those projects.
Yeah, definitely. I always appreciate when I see artists or anyone really doing something a little bit different. And obviously, I guess as artists or designers, you don't usually get that from them, where you're a little bit more personable and have video and talk directly to people, because it's just a little bit, difficult to do for some. It's definitely difficult for me. I know. But I try to force myself to do things like this because I like talking to people and I want to talk to creatives and stuff. But I'm definitely more on the shy side.
Yeah, I agree with that 100%. I watched it back and I was like, oh, I'm not happy with how that sounded. Whatever. But yeah. I was people seem to respond to it well. And it helped me mentally too a lot. Just I feel a lot more organized, and that there's, now that that's out, there's more pressure on me to actually pull through and be organized about with getting my stuff out there.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, doing so when I was talking with Nick on the first episode of Sunday Conversations, I was telling him before what I wanted to do, a video thing, start doing this, and then he kind of got excited about it and asked me about it, when it's gonna be happening and stuff. And I was like, you know what, I think you should be the first guest. Let's just do it and get started like that. I have something to commit to, and I can continue ongoing. So thanks to Nick. This is continuing happening.
He's always a good positive push.
Yeah. I love it. But yeah, I mean, we can get into the questions, but I wanted to ask you first, just to give a brief overview of who you are. Just a quick background for people who don't know you already.
Yeah, so my name's Joey Goergen. I was born in Buffalo, New York, moved to Cleveland about 5 or 6 years ago. I went to the Cleveland Institute of Art. I have a background in drawing and printmaking. And I have recently become pretty much a full-time illustrator and designer. I've worked with you, Sunday Drive Records, on t-shirts. I've worked with bands like Change and React Records, Sunstroke, Anxious, One Step Closer, kind of all over the US with current hardcore bands.
Awesome. And how did you get into hardcore?
So the story is kind of funny and really specific, but there was a group of kids. We used to just skateboard in my driveway. There was and my neighborhood was divided by a main road. And if you cross the other main road, there was another development. And so there was the group of kids in my development. We would all skate all the time. And there were a couple of kids that we on the other side of the street that would come over once in a while. And there was this kid, Drew. He plays in like Wildside Candy, and a bunch of bands. I can't name them all, but he was in a youth crew band called Better Times, and he was a year older than me, and he lived on the other side. So like seeing him was like always like kind of a novelty, and like, oh, like he's like the cool one. And like, I don't know, one time he was like playing a Bad Brain song and I was like mumbling the words like from a Tony Hawk soundtrack, and he was like, you know who the Bad Brains are? So we instantly connected. But one day I was skating alone in my driveway, and he just biked by my house and stopped and said, my band's playing the show, come to it. And it was them opening for Agnostic Front, which is so strange. But they played Cause for, it was a good Agnostic Front set because they played Cause for Alarm cover to cover. Which that was my first hardcore show, so I didn't know what Cause for Alarm was. I didn't know what Agnostic Front was. I didn't know what Youth Crew was. I didn't know any of that stuff. But I went, and so we were like 13 and 14, so pretty young, and all the dudes were like 20 in the band, like in Better Times, I think. But they all had tattoos and stuff, and they were all like edgy looking. So I was like, oh, like I want to be like them. I want to be like, they're straight edge, they don't drink, and they like look cool. I want to be that. And then so I just started going, and then there was a venue in Buffalo called the Funeral Home that had shows literally every weekend, and they were always like the local, like Malfunction was one of the local bands, and they played every week. There was like a couple others like Brainwreck, and they were always like goofy, and like we'd be throwing pool noodles at each other and beach balls, and like, I don't know, it was crazy, but so much fun, and like just kind of like kept me engaged and out of trouble, I guess, in some way, but also in trouble.
That's a really interesting story. I feel like you have a much cooler experience or background of how you got into hardcore.
It's just so specific because it was like I was into Attack and like Dance Gavin Dance and stuff, and like all that stuff, and there was a skate park that would have those shows, so we would pay $10, skate all day, and then sneak into the show later. But then like for some reason I think it was some Tony Hawk game had a Dag Nasty song, and then like my listening started to change from there. And then I got in like, and then that show happened, and I was like, oh, I'm out of that like singy, screamy stuff.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, I mean, we're like along the same age range. I think you're like 2 years older.
Okay.
But like same here. Like when I was like 12 to like 13, 14, like I was listening to the same music, like Attack, like The Devil Wears Prada, like Under Oath, like, you know, that was just like what was kind of popular at the time.
For sure.
And I didn't get that hardcore experience until I met like older friends as well. And then they kind of like show me all these bands, and then we would go to like the local venue, and I discovered like all these local hardcore bands, and I was like, whoa, like what is this? It opened my eyes to like a whole new world. So,
I think, and the importance of like local bands, especially when you're young, I think is so important. Like I was like, this kid is 1 year older than me, and he's drumming in like 5 bands, and like there was one set where I think the flyer was just like a picture of the moon, but somebody photoshopped his head in it because he played in 4 out of 5 of the bands that were playing that night. Like
yeah, I guess when you're like at that age, you're very impressionable, so like you just kind of know what you know. So like you see TV and like movies, and you see like all these guys doing concerts and like big shows, and you're like, whoa, they're like, this guy goes to my school and he plays drums in this band, and I can talk to him like after the show, like like it just feels like so like cool. Different. But yeah, it's definitely like a special experience, just like that first like hardcore show. You know, it just really does like open your eyes to like a whole new world. But one of the, like the biggest things I wanted to bring up, like why I wanted to talk to you, is that I think that your art is unique. I don't think it's traditional, which is a lot of hardcore, and not just art, but like, you know, hardcore as a whole is like traditional from the beginning. And you see like these kind of changes, like, every now and then, but for the most part, it's like kind of in this one overall, bubble. And I hope like that continues to like change. And I love when like things happen, like Revolution Summer, for example,
Yeah.
like, all of the melodies come into play. But anyway, I think your art is unique. It's playful in a way. And it contrasts a lot of the music and like subject matter that you're designing for. So I love that. I think I always love like a juxtaposition of like, two subjects and like where it contrasts and like it makes sense at the same time. Like it's not like random playfulness, like matching like a hardcore song, for example. Like you kind of have to look at it and like examine it a little bit more, and then you kind of like understand like this is why it looks this way. So I really appreciate that. So I wanted to ask you, like, where are you pulling this inspiration from? Like, I know you talked about drawing people. You're like interested in like couches and like swimming pools, and like you kind of like build a puzzle, and like you kind of like everything like reacts to like whatever you're drawing. From what I've read, and I think that's an interesting process. But I guess like art styles, like where are you pulling from?
Yeah, I'm a little all over the place. So when I'm designing for a band or like a hardcore like band, I really listen to the songs and think about them in a way. I think like I haven't worked with them, but Turnstile, I think, is a band that opened the door for me. And Give too. I think those two bands opened the door for me and said like hardcore isn't angry all the time. It's not um it's about energy, and it's an intense expression of emotion. I think the way that the guitars and vocals and like how everything sounds in both those bands is a unique package, and it's colorful and loud. It's not black and like brooding, like, and not skulls. It's just neon and expressive and in earnest. Like I think hardcore is an extreme expression of something. So it depends on the band, right? Um, and so like those bands, or like even like you think about H2O, it's corny, but it's the most extreme expression of positivity that you can possibly imagine somebody putting out in the world. So like you take all those things into account and you bring it to a drawing, and it's constantly like that's kind of where I think about how I use color from, is like especially like the way Turnstile's guitars sound. They're so colorful to me, and the way they come out, and it's even on the packaging. Like Nonstop Feeling is such a colorful looking record. But then I look at a lot of fine art too, and there's this painter Alex Katz and David Hockney. Those are kind of my two places where I draw a lot of compositional elements, or like Alex Katz is really where I got interested in drawing people from. A lot of his work. So I get frustrated listening to him talk about art because he paints people exclusively pretty much, but he only talks about the application of the paint. He doesn't talk about the content of the people. So you kind of have to come to your own conclusions with that. And you don't really know what's going on in his mind. But for me, it's like I was this painter in the 1950s. All of my friends were painting these abstract expressionist paintings, and I started painting people. And it was just like, we're this clique of people. And for him, it was like, oh, we're we're artsy people, we're exclusive, we're this, we're that. And for me, it's like, I think about that and I'm like, well, hardcore and like the subculture communities that I'm a part of, whether it be like hipster art culture or like hardcore or punk or whatever, you go to the venue or you go to the art show and you kind of like look around, you're like, oh, like I'm just drawing this outlook of people in this community. Like that's kind of the way I draw people, is like I'll put someone in like a Black Flag t-shirt, or like I'll put some, in like little nods to the culture that we're in. and kind of make them look like they're participating in the contemporary space. And then David Hockney, the way I fragment space, his stuff, he'll do things where he'll take pictures, like he'll take 35 millimeter photos, like a panoramic, but stack them all together and then paint that. And I don't necessarily do that, but I think of the way he fragments space where I can put a living room and then like cut it in half and then have like a sidewalk, and kind of, it's all the rooms in a house, but you can see it all at once.
Yeah. No, that's very interesting. I think that's a good way to kind of pull in inspiration too, where you're not just kind of doing the same thing, but putting your own spin on it. And you mentioned like Turnstile, like Nonstop Feeling was like one of the first albums that came to mind when I was like trying to figure out like where like you could have pulled this from, like this like colorful like playfulness into this world.
Yeah.
Along with that, I was trying to think like other things like John Slavy's like Title Fight artwork, like Last Thing You Forget and Floral Green, like do not look like hardcore like album arts.
Yeah, his art is, I love his art and I don't understand it. Like at the same time, like he's technically an amazing painter, and I don't like, and I'm really interested in the Floral Green and Floral Green's the one with like the lady, like you pull it out and there's like the lady in the field.
Yeah.
The composition is so strange.
Yeah. Yeah, it's really cool. Very detailed too.
Yeah, it's detailed and not at the same time. Like it's so flat.
Yeah, it is like it's flat, but like you see like all of these like contrasts on the colors. And I feel like it just like pops, and it's so like it's so contrasty. Like there's like a lot of darks in all of its colors.
Yes.
Which like it looks like very pretty when you like pull it out.
No, it's beautiful, and I love his paint. He did like paintings of like VHS players with like old skate videos in them. Those are so cool.
Yeah. So those are like the couple of like albums that came to mind when I was trying to think of like who has done this like in the past. And like before that, I'm sure there's more, but the one that comes to my head is like 7 Seconds, Walk Together, Rock Together. I know that one's a little bit more playful, and it's like them, like just like a photo, and like the cover is just like kind of fun.
Yeah, and I guess this goes back to how I got into art, or like going into how I got into working with bands. And I've probably talked about it before, but it's good to recap. I would get Praise is one of the bands too that got me into this stuff, and they're the ones who got me. So I got into 7 Seconds when I was discovering my style of stuff. So maybe like, I don't know, 4 or 5 years ago, I was constantly ordering records from Death Wish, and they always put little promo photos of what's coming up. And there's one of Praise in a gas station, and the floor is like a tile and stuff, and they're like it's just like there's like a angle to it, and I decided just to start painting over it, and I painted it like lime green and yellow and hot pink over this black and white photo, and it looked so funky, but I just posted it online and tagged the band in it, and it really kind of opened my it just like opened up people engaging with my artwork. And then like shortly after that, I did like a Turnstile one, and they reposted it, and there were a couple other things like that really, I did one for Give, and then I ended up doing a shirt for them, which was like when I did that, I was like, I'm done. I can die.
Yeah.
But I think Andy from Praise he did for a while like an archive of 7 Seconds stuff. He had like an Instagram where it was just photos of 7 Seconds stuff he collected, and there was like a letter head that was a note from Kevin Seconds to Dag Nasty, and it was like, it had like Dag Nasty like letter, or like it was Dag Nasty to the Kevin Seconds, and it was just like such a specific piece of paper that had like a Dag Nasty, the Flamehead like letterhead on it, and I was like, this is so weird and unique. Sorry, I'm like derailed. I'm thinking like how to bring it back to like how it's style, but it's like there's hardcore like is so eccentric and weird. Like try to talk to it to some of my other friends, and they're just like, I don't know what's going on, and like, or like why you're into it, and
Yeah.
like, yeah, because I like, even like, I'm not saying I'm like, I don't do like super jokey art, but there's always been like joke songs or joke bands and stuff, or like weird tracks that are crazy, you know. But yeah, I think that Revolution Summer stuff and like Kevin or 7 Seconds really kind of open a door to allowing like the expression take a different change.
Yeah, for sure. And like, yeah, and I guess now like thinking about it a little more, like you mentioned Dag Nasty, like looking at like some of the Discord releases, that artwork, that's pretty like different as well. I would say like the Dag Nasty, can I say, artwork is like very weird, but
Yeah.
pretty, different. It's because when I think of traditional hardcore albums, so what I'm kind of describing is like a live shot, of like
Yeah,
a
like the break
crowd.
down the walls, or
Yeah, break down the walls and like, bold type. And like, I mean, I love it. It looks cool. I mean, all of the like the early Rev releases kind of had that similar style, and it
yeah,
very much inspired me. Just like looking at like the typography a lot, and like trying to think like why would they use like varsity letters, or like why are they using these typefaces, and like trying to figure that out. But like all the composition on it is like very great. Like the back covers, like the center labels on all those records, like very nice and clean. So
yeah.
I love it as like a designer. But like the things that interest me a little bit more than that, although I love that, is like the Dag Nasty cover. Like what is what is that?
No idea.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah. It's always fun to see the like outlier in the circle, or like even like the if it's like a rev release, like the Quicksand
yeah,
self-titled, the 7 inch. It's, what is that head? Why?
yeah,
Why? It's so weird, and the
yeah,
photo looks so weird because it's like
yeah,
Xerox or whatever.
yeah.
Um, and
Even
yeah,
the Embrace artwork too that comes to
yes,
mind. Right to Spring, like
yeah,
yeah, I'm thinking about it now. Like yeah, all these Discord album covers are pretty weird, and I love them. And I love that specifically from the Discord stuff, like some of the assets that they're pulling from, and like all these like bootleg shirts. Like I have a couple now where you see like what they pull, like the insert like illustration, like put it on the t-shirt for like Embrace or like Right to Spring and stuff. Like I love that.
yeah. It's so cool. I love, yeah, I think like Discord too is, in DC in general, is such a interesting like history to pull from. There's like, I last when the pandemic started, we just sat and watched like every hardcore documentary that we could find. And the DC stuff, like it's nice because their archive is like so open and accessible in terms of like how much Ian Mackay content there is out there, and how much like they kind of talk about the Discord stuff. And I think it's an outlier in the scene because it was just kind of its own isolated movement. Um, and there's so much. It's punk and it's hardcore, but it's so removed in a way um, that I find really unique.
Yeah. Um, yeah. A lot of that Discord stuff is like very inspiring. I was like, I'm referencing it when I'm like, you know, I pull up album covers a lot when I'm designing, just like get some inspiration. And
Yeah,
like more specifically, like layouts is what I look at for composition. Um, but yeah, a lot of great content there. But I want to know a little bit more about your experience in art school, because
okay,
I had uh, so I studied, it's called visualization, which is like art but mixed with technology.
okay,
So I studied. I specialized in graphic design, but I also studied animation, like 3D animation, and also video game like design. So it's
okay.
like kind of like a broad spectrum of what I learned. But in the beginning, like everyone had to go through like a traditional like art studio and learn about like composition and like fundamentals of design,
Yeah.
color theory, all of like that foundation art, which I'm sure you studied as well.
Yeah.
And I initially like hated it because that's not what I wanted to do there. And then I started doing the projects, hating it at the time, but now looking back at it, I'm very thankful that I've had those classes because it taught me to think differently than like what I guess like normal people outside of like the art world like understand. So you learn about like fundamentals of design, for example. You realize what composition is and like why are things like formatted this way. You learn about typography, color, like color theory to like what colors like go well together and everything. So like yeah, I guess briefly to explain my experience, I hated it in the beginning. I loved it in the end. But I'm interested in like, did you like everything like from the beginning? Did you have a hard time being surrounded by the people you're in studio with? I'm not sure like how your studio environment was, but like I know in mine like everyone was there like all the time, like working on stuff and like so very interested in that.
Yeah. So the Cleveland Institute of Art is a really interesting school, and I didn't know how interesting it was when I chose it. But they don't have a grad school program, so they bring in a lot of visiting artists. So when you're like a junior and senior, you really get to meet some really cool people, and you get attention from that you wouldn't get at a normal school. But I will back up to the beginning. So I graduated high school and then had the whole summer, whatever, went to CIA for 2 months pretty much, dropped out because of the pressure was too much. I was balancing a couple other things and was in a very dark mental space. And then I took the whole year off and I spent an entire year watching TBS reruns. So a lot of Seinfeld, a lot of Saved by the Bell. If I look back, my memory can't pull anything out of that year. It's completely blacked out, which is not good, but I'm probably glad that I can't think about it.
You just have like a Seinfeld like baseline in your head.
Yeah, exactly. But in February of that year, one of my favorite bands of all time, Lemuria, posted online that they were looking for an intern, which I was like, I didn't think any, I was like, oh, this band's bigger because they sing, they don't scream all the time. They probably do need an intern. But I replied to the email and ended up just doing their mail order pretty much. But it was me and the drummer would just sit at his house and we would watch B-side movies like Big Trouble in Little China, Troll 2. Those are the two that come to mind. And we became friends and whatever. He found out that I drew and stuff. And they had a main designer, Craig Horkey, who his art is phenomenal. Like he has t-shirt design figured out. But they went on a tour with the Menzingers and he was like, this will be really cool. Draw a flyer for every date on the show. And I drew 30 posters in like 30 days. And that got the fire back under me to go back and start drawing every day and getting really into it. And all I thought about was art from that moment. And I was like, okay, I'm ready to go back to school. Let's do it. So I jumped in. And the first year at CIA is all foundation stuff. So kind of like what you're saying, color theory, design 1, design 2, drawing 1, drawing 2, and a couple other classes that kind of build your skill set and round you out, whether it be you do learn some digital stuff, but it's mostly physical or like physical fundamentals. And all of my professors were fine art leaning. So the one woman, Christy Birchfield, was the most intense person I think I've ever met, but she set a template for me and she's one of my favorite artists. And she was one of my favorite teachers I ever had. If you showed up late to her class, you'd get kicked out. If you were asleep, she would shake your desk, like, if you, and she wasn't afraid to hold back. Like, we had some of those like
critiques.
Yeah, some of those critiques, that were just like, and I had a drawing one critique with another professor who she was like, when you come in, the work has to be hung up, otherwise we're not talking about it. So all the work was hung up. She just like looked at the wall and said, "This isn't good enough. Just go home and do it again. Come back next week." Yeah. Like, that's harsh.
Yeah.
But like,
no, I want to hit on that too, because from like the outside world, like people who are not in art school, like this probably sounds horrible, like, to hear, but like it's kind of, I mean, it kind of is, but like art students, like, if you don't know, like, you go, like, you work on this project for like, however long you have, maybe a week, sometimes just like a day, or a couple of days, and you go and like hang your art, and everyone sees it in the classroom, and like you have this like professor who's like supposed to know like everything, and like looks at your art and can tear it down if it's like garbage, like, and you think like if you like might be like, oh, like, I didn't think it's that bad, but like they are pretty harsh sometimes, and like and then you have to like participate and like give critiques to like other students' work as well. But yeah, I just wanted to explain that a little bit more.
No, for sure. Yeah, it sounds terrible to be like, you're on display and you have to listen to people's thoughts about it. And sometimes it's really useful, and sometimes you're like, that doesn't really apply to what I was trying to do there. But it's liberating too. I think once you start getting into the weeds of it and you start understanding the process, or like why you're getting ripped apart every week, it's just because people want you to be better and know you're capable of doing better than what you put up.
Yeah, I was gonna say something similar. Like it kind of like teaches you how to detach yourself a little bit from your artwork, because I feel like that's what you have initially, like going into anything. Like, since a child, like you create something, like you color something for your parents, and like you go to your mom, like, oh, like it's so amazing, like go hang it on the fridge or something. So we kind of all have that like fundamental like instinct, or like everything you're creating is like great. But once you get to like an art school, for example, and like you learn that it's not as good as it can be. So like I said, it detaches you emotionally from it, which sounds kind of weird to begin with.
Yeah.
But like it teaches you how to like start critiquing your own artwork, and like learn how to like, oh, this isn't good. Like telling yourself that, and like finding out like ways to make it better based on like previous comments that you've heard from like other students or other professors, and like learn how to like use that to your advantage.
Yeah, one of the best things I learned later on is like, one of the teachers just said, like, just know none of this is precious. And I was like, oh, like that lit the fire even harder.
Yeah.
Like, that's such a weird thing. It's like, yes, a lot of the work I make is the most vulnerable expression of who I am, is that I can put out into the world. But also learning that like it's just a stepping stone for the next thing I'm going to do is kind of relieving in some way. Like, there's no pressure on any of the pieces I'm making. Yeah. And then to kind of go from there to like, after the fundamentals, you get into your majors, which is like, so I chose drawing and printmaking, which seem kind of, drawing is just tell people I have a degree in drawing is one of the strangest things. Cause it's not illustration. It's like drawing geared towards gallery artwork.
Yeah. It's like learning to see.
Yes. Yeah. And it's, and basically after your freshman year, once you get into your major, the teacher, especially in drawing, they're like, we know you took drawing 1 and 2. You're supposed to know how to draw. We're not talking about fundamentals. We're not talking about technical anymore. We do a little bit, but it's mostly theoretical. It's mostly conceptual based stuff. and you're kind of self-guided through that journey, and the teachers act more as mentors and help you develop your craft in a way that you can graduate and have a career in some capacity.
Yeah.
And then you kind of work towards this BFA where you make a whole show or a body of work and then defend it to the panel of your professors. They ask questions, you write a 10-page paper that really kind of goes in depth about, all the stuff we're talking about today.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I guess overall, are you glad that you've went through these experiences, and like, do you think that your degree like helps to what you're doing now?
Yeah. I see so much, like in the community I'm in, I see a lot of like in the music world and stuff. I see a lot of people saying like college isn't necessary, and it's not for everybody. It's totally not. But for me, it gave me structure and the isolated time to focus on my craft. So I left there with a really strong skill set to make the dream I have a reality. I don't think I would have been confident enough on my own to chase that. I think the professors helped me kind of craft it in a way that made sense. They helped me, I wouldn't know how to outsource the way I know how to outsource stuff now. I wouldn't think about art in the way I think about it now.
Yeah.
It was definitely a formative experience, and it helped me understand how to digest imagery and digest like content, for lack of a better word, in the world in a different manner.
Yeah, I agree. I had similar experience where I could say, for me personally, I found value in my education and like studying design. I can't speak for like all aspects of college. Like if you're going for like a business degree or something, or like engineering or something, I'm not sure how that can pan out. But specifically for art, you may think also like, why would you study art? Like people always kind of have that negative connotation to it, where like you're just like wasting your money, like you're just gonna graduate and not have a job, basically. Which can be true. Like it is a little bit scary at the same time. But like again, speaking personally, I found value in it because you meet these professors, you meet like these other students that you're like working with, and like you learn a lot from them, whether like you know it at the time or not. Like just like being around like people doing similar things to you, or like working on similar projects and seeing like different perspectives. Like once you like present something, like, oh, I would have never thought to do a competition like that, or like we all have like the same like subject to work on, and everyone else like looks different, which is like kind of awesome, like
totally.
to think of. Because you see like different perspectives, and like you learn that not everything is like your worldview. It kind of, like I said earlier, like it really teaches you how to see differently, I think.
100%.
So I mean, again, school is not for everyone. You can teach yourself like everything like nowadays.
For sure.
So but it does require like that drive if you want to go along that path. Like it requires a lot of work, and like I think that school just kind of forces you to do these things. Like I would never want to do any of these things myself because I don't have that much of a drive to like put together projects for myself and like everything like that. So if you have the means to go to school, I would say like go to it if you would like, but I mean I know it's difficult as well. Like I had to get a lot of scholarships and like loans and like work really hard because I was very poor and like, my parents couldn't afford school, so like I know it is difficult. But I would just encourage others, like if you want to go to school, like let's see what's out there and like what resources are available to you.
Definitely. And like I feel like yes, I agree. And I think like knowing like, so the time I went and dropped out, it was because I wasn't ready. like I feel like it's important to know you can go whenever. It's not a push, you know. And I don't think a lot, like I think parents too, they're like, I went as soon as I graduated, you have to go. And it's like
Yeah.
that you're off. As much as like I joke about not knowing anything about it, I think I grew as a person. Like I knew like if I'm going to college, I have to be there 100%. Like I really can't, like I mean, being straight edge or whatever, I don't drink or whatever, but I go to shows and stuff, and shows would be like, okay, I got my homework done, I can go to the show. Like, but I pretty much just focused on school the whole time. There wasn't a whole lot of me um like partying or like going out. It was 100% like focused out. I would make like 200 drawings a semester or whatever, you know.
Yeah. Yeah. I guess being straight edge has that advantage a little
Yeah,
bit,
it
like
really does.
having you
Yeah.
focus.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, having fun is great too, though. Like,
No,
you
for
know,
sure.
do what you want, but like, you know, I had same experience. Like I was always like kind of working, and I had a part time job to like help pay for school, so I would do that. But that part time job was like in design, so at the same time, it was like teaching me more design.
Yeah.
And then so yeah, it's kind of like a wild time to think about. Like, and I just graduated like a few years ago, but like even just thinking back, like what I was doing then, like it's kind of wild, like how your body and like your mind like just changes during those years because you're like always like working and like getting
Mhm.
little sleep. Like I can't imagine doing that right now.
Yeah, no, I don't think I could mentally do it. Yeah.
Yeah. It's kind of difficult, but once you adjust, like you just are fully there. But yeah, I thought it was kind of an interesting topic to talk about because I don't think that like art school in general is discussed much in our community. So it was something I was like, you know, interested in asking you about because we both have kind of similar experiences in
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, it's for me, it's always like it's interesting when academia and hardcore is a bit of an oxymoron, right?
Yeah.
But you see people that talk about it at some capacity, and
Yeah.
it's always, for me, it's always like my ear always perks up, like Pat Flynn or whatever,
Yeah.
whenever he, right? And then Ned from Title Fight went to there. I don't know what it was that I listened to, but he talked for an hour about his experience at Columbia for creative
Hmm.
writing, and now he wrote a novel, and
Yeah.
and just like hearing about that experience really opened up the way I think about things. And like, oh, like, yeah, just because it's hardcore doesn't mean I can't be like a nerdy loser also.
Yeah. Yeah. I guess like education has a kind of like a negative type of, you know, thing in hardcore. I mean,
Mhm.
but I mean, I think that's changing now, though. Like, I feel like a lot of people are like driven in like our community, more so, and like are learning, a lot more, which is like very cool to see. So yeah, there's might be like a change happening right now, in this like past year,
Yeah,
um, which is exciting.
for
And I
sure.
always like love people like I love seeing like people succeed. So like anyone like working towards something like a larger goal that they have set for themselves and like making themselves happy. That's always just like great to see.
Yeah, and yeah, I think yes, achieving a personal goal. That's a good way to put it. Like,
Yeah.
it doesn't have to be school. It could be
Yeah.
like, even like a band. Oh, we put out this record. We worked really hard on it.
Yeah.
That's so sick to
Amazing.
me.
Yeah, definitely. Um, but I guess I kind of want to go in a direction of this conversation and more about like your process on like taking on projects. Because I have had experiences where I'm given free realm to do whatever I want in design, which is
Yeah,
frustrating at times, but also kind of nice sometimes. But I wanted to ask you, like about your process with taking on commissions. Like, where do you start? And I have an example, like with the shirt that you're wearing. Like, I gave you a pretty like straightforward like example of like what I wanted, and like you achieved it like so like quickly and like so greatly. But I know not every project is like that where you get a straightforward concept. Like, how do you deal with, I guess, open-endedness and like trying to figure out what can work for a band?
Yeah, that's such a good question, and I think about it a lot. Yeah, you gave me a great example, and I think one of my favorite things with shirts, and I think this shirt encapsulates it a lot, is the idea of lineage to the past or the present. And I think like, oh, okay, it's this Gorilla Biscuits rip, but how do I make it a Joeysxworld drawing? How do I make it fit the prompt or the concept? And um, how, like what little nods can I put in there to the current state of things, or like the and the Gorilla Biscuit stuff. So like, putting the little guy with the trumpet player, that was like so clutch, and like learning how to draw and the mark making that's involved in creating that little guy helped inform kind of how the rest of the drawing would play out. But thankfully, my style is my style to some degree, where most people are coming to me for that and say, this is the idea I have. I think what you would do fits it. And so I have some free range. Knowing how screen printing works helps, I think, in terms of like,
Definitely.
it's going to be expensive if you do 10 colors, but we can do it. Like, or knowing the ins and outs of everything is, yeah. I'm trying to think, like, so the change t-shirts we did, that was, unlike a lot of projects I work on, Aram is really intense but really positive. So I bought a shirt from the Death Wish store. Everything comes back to Death Wish, shout out. But I bought a shirt and I just tagged Keith X Edge, I think, on the internet. He packed the order and was like, love what you do. And I was like, man, I used to follow him on Tumblr when I was a kid, and I think he's a little older than me. So I was like, man, that dude's so cool. Like, and I was like, so to see that, no one be like, he knows who I am. That's so cool. Like, little nerdy thing. So I tagged him, I tagged Change, and then I think Aram runs the page, was like, let's do something. Like, wow. I looked at your page, it's sick. This is the timeline. Listen to a song, respond to it. And so I just like, I love that band, and I just like listened to the record and like really sat with the lyrics, asked him to send it to me. And I just sat there. Like, it took me a little bit longer than normal because the experience and the lyrics of all the songs are so personal. And like, whether it be about being better than you were yesterday, or like losing someone in your life, or those types of things, like especially like the loss of someone, and reaching out to others around you is such a important thing, and a thing I ruminate a lot on, and think about how art and imagery can be a thing that people can latch onto for positive reasons, or to connect with someone to say like, oh, I feel that way too. But so like, so to do that design, he really gave me free rein. He's like, colors don't matter, do what you need to do. And it was a lot, but it was also a lot of back and forth. I was on the mock-up, he'd be like, he would make slight adjustments, and it was a lot of back and forth on that stuff. But a lot of what I do, and I think it comes from having a more conceptual background, is really digesting what the band or artist or person is saying, like thinking about the content of the lyrics, thinking about that. And then also, like I said, participating in like the lineage. So like a lot of the Sunstroke stuff, they do a lot of like early 90s college rock, Discord style stuff. So it's easy for me to jump in, because like we're saying, I have such like a vast knowledge of that stuff. It's easy for me to jump in there and kind of like walk around their universe and be like, oh, we like these, 4 or 5 artists. Let's funnel that through Joeysxworld and see what comes out. Sean, who sings in Sunstroke, will send me the lyrics or send me the idea for a record or the idea for what he's thinking about for like the live stream. And it's just, okay, let's ruminate on that. And then like, for him, I really do I go back and I like Melinda Beck, the lady who did a lot of the Quicksand art. I kind of go through her portfolio a lot, and I forgot the guy's name, but the guy who did the Hot Water Music art, kind of like look through their stuff and like, okay, what does this look like through my lens?
Yeah, those are good references too. Because their art definitely looks different.
So different.
Yeah, the Quicksand like t-shirt illustrations, like so good. Like I don't own any, but I want one so bad. They're hard to find.
I have one of the hoodie with like a dude who has like eyes like smoking, like his eyes are mouths and they're smoking cigarettes. It's so weird, and it's uniquely her own vision.
Yeah.
And I want to meet her in the worst way. It's so corny. But like Walt, like it's not it is frustrating because it's what I want. But Walter is doing so many interviews right now, and like they're putting out new music, and like I'm like, yes, I need this.
It's time.
But his artistic vision for these projects is so specific, and nobody ever like people like Bob from Axe to Grind will talk about it in passing or whatever. And I was like, oh, cool. They're interviewing him. They might touch on this. Like, I know Bob loves Melinda Beck. Like, let's go. And then it didn't happen. I was like, oh, like, but I even the lady, Amy Grantham, who did the Interiors album art, it's such a specific looking, well thought out, well curated thing. And I want to know the steps to how that happened.
Yeah, that's interesting. I haven't really thought about it like that, but that would be a great conversation. And I think we should both talk to Walter.
We should.
Let's get Walter on the call. Yeah, because what I'm thinking now about all the artworks, like Gorilla Biscuits Start Today, crazy album cover, like the letters, like the back of it with the little guy, like the GB, like there's so much there, and it works all together.
Who knew that the giant gorilla wearing a champion sweatshirt would like change the world, right?
And like the rival schools art, like it's so interesting. I think like it has this like retro feel to it, but it really speaks to that time, I think. And like I think on Instagram too, that someone had mentioned like it can be just like a regular like t-shirt that you find like at Old Navy or something that's just like a graphic.
The rival schools, but it's so cool. And even like the pedals art or like the found art is so cool.
Yeah, it's like someone in like a warehouse or something, right?
Yeah, and it's like old, it's like found paintings, like it's like storage, you know? And I'm like, oh, that's genius.
Quicksand Slip, amazing art. Like I'm trying to think of like everything. Even the
Dine Alone cover is super. Like the Dine Alone cover is so much of last year was me ripping that cover off. I go to that cover for so much stuff, and that dog I drew that is on like it's on a crew neck and I have keychains of it. I didn't look at the cover for that, and then somebody was like, "Yo, you literally just drew that." I was like, "Oh no." I felt bad. I was gonna like reach out and apologize at some point.
That's the blue one, right? With like
it's green. And then they're right. This.
Yeah, I have that one.
It's on the hat too.
Yeah. Even the more like photographic stuff, like you mentioned Interiors, but the Divorce album single, like I love that album art. It's like, first of all, like the name of it is so cool. Like I want to use that for a band name. I think it's
Divorce.
like, yeah, I think it just sounds cool. But like, yeah, the title is just like a small rectangle and it has like this orange art and you see like a woman in a dress. I'm like,
Yeah,
yeah,
I think so. Yeah. Oh my God. Yeah. And I think for inspiration to phrasing and words
yeah,
too, such a key thing. I think like Walter and like I fucked up
yeah,
and every time I die too,
yeah,
lyrical geniuses and paint a picture in a way that if I'm listening to them, I can almost see the song forming or like
yeah,
see images of what is there, you know?
yeah. Now, yeah. Sorry, I was just like thinking back to the divorce album art. I just
Yeah.
noticed too that the two words are like separated by a line and the rectangle. Yeah,
Yeah.
separation. It's
I don't,
great.
that's like one I don't have yet. I got to track it
Yeah, I
down.
don't have it either. I needed to. Um, but yeah, I also wanted to ask like, uh, how are you balancing everything recently? Because I know it's hard. Like for me, I get uninspired a lot sometimes, and like I don't want to work on anything or do anything, which can be very troublesome if you have like a lot of work that is due soon and it's like a lot to handle. And also like having to work like a full-time job, for example, and like do this stuff like something that you're inspired and like want to work on, but like I almost sometimes feel like you're like in a cage and you can't get out until like this time, and then you can start working on something that you want to do. So how
Yeah.
how do you balance and deal with everything?
I don't know. Lately it's been tough for me. I have a pretty, I'd like to think I have a strong work ethic. I spent all of last year or not saying no to stuff and getting overbooked and learning that that's not a help. Like I get so motivated by hearing like all these artists being like, for the first 10 years, you can't say no to anything. You just have to do it all. Just go, go, go.
Yeah,
And I'm like, I can't function that way. Um, I'm fortunate enough to be working with such like-minded people or projects that are so specific to my world and so specific to who I want to like the output that I want to be or challenge me in a way that I've never been challenged before or a way that I haven't done something in a while where it's like I need to it keeps me engaged and curious. I think being curious is something I lose sometimes and need to be reminded that like there's always an approach I haven't thought about for a design or like, oh, like a texture, like what would that texture look like screen printed on a t-shirt or, you know, new color palettes. Um, like going back to the basics is a lot of keeping me grounded and keeping me driving. Like, so right now I've had a month and it's due at the end of this month to start this animated music video. And I've done one before and it's good. It's all hand drawn. It's like 1,000 drawings and I did it in like 4 days, which
oh
is
my
not
god.
good. But like now that I have like the time to do it, I'm overthinking it in a lot of ways. But like Dinosaur Jr. just put out a new record.
Yeah.
I don't know the name of the song off the top of my head, but there's a new video with a stop motion thing, and it's the guy
Okay.
who did the Higher Power, one of the Higher Power music videos off their new record.
Yeah.
And I found his page, and I was like, there's like I want to do it hand drawn still, but there's stop motion elements where I'm like, what if I do like cuts between like the chorus and the verses that are like real, you know, like pictures, and then like go back to drawing somehow
Yeah.
in it, and knowing that what I'm doing is kind of an unconventional approach to animation is kind of like I'm like, oh, this is going to be different, and it's different for me because
Yeah.
I don't do it every day.
Yeah.
but that's because my brain, like, I'm talking about this because it's what my brain is like firing on.
No, yeah. I think that's a good example too. Because I always say I've had similar experiences where anytime I'm uninspired or don't want to do something or it's hard to balance things, like I do something different and it like lights a spark again. Like recently I was designing some album art, and I have gotten caught up on my computer of just like doing stuff in Photoshop or like Illustrator and like putting something together pretty quickly just because of like
Yeah.
time. I like purposely told myself like I'm not going to start in the computer today. Like I'm going to start by hand, which is like something I used to do a lot, like during school and like a little bit after school. But like I've just gotten so caught up with time where like I need to like pump things out more quickly. So it's always like faster just to like do it on the computer. But this time I was like, I'm gonna use my hand. And like I did like some hand lettering, and like I was like I got a crayon out and I was like trying to like color stuff like just like when I was a kid, like, almost. And like I was trying to like build this kind of like new style that I've like have done in the past, but not to this extent. And I was like
Mhm.
using like I was like printing a bunch of stuff like as references and like photocopying and like putting it back in Photoshop and like cleaning it up and stuff. So it was like a lot of like fun. It was kind of felt like a puzzle in a way too, like putting everything. You have all these assets now and like putting it together in a composition and like on the computer. So yeah, things like that are always like inspiring. Just like trying something different kind of lights that spark again. So yeah, great example. And like going back to your animation idea, I think that also helps like kind of give you ideas for your next projects. Like now that you've had this experience, like what are you gonna do next time?
Yeah, and I think too, like, yeah, and anytime I like one once a year I draw a realistic bird, just to remind myself I know how to draw, and it's just like a joke that I have for myself. I never post.
Yeah.
I think I posted last year's and then deleted it shortly after. But I anytime I do something that's not, yeah, like, or like I'm doing this animation project or I drew the realistic bird, when I go back, there's something new that wasn't there before. It's like, oh, like the way that, that texture played out when I drew it for the video really fast looks awesome. What if I apply that to the t-shirt in the drawing, in one of my drawings?
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah, it kind of creates like a cyclical thing.
Yeah. And I kind of mentioned too, like using the computer, and like I know that you use your iPad, like and like Procreate and stuff. Like I want to learn a little bit more about that. Like, what is your usual process going from traditional to digital? Like, are you always starting traditional and then going to digital and cleaning everything up? Do you have like
Yes.
your own Procreate brushes? Like, how does that all work for you?
Yeah, all my stuff kind of goes through multiple. I'm looking for examples just to pull so I can talk about it now, but I don't know if I have any out.
Mm-hmm.
I pretty much always start physical, right? I'll start let's depict the Sunday Drive shirt, right? I bought a compass,
Yeah.
drew the circle out for the logo. I'm like, that's going in the center, like the
Yeah.
GB thing. Okay. And I left that out because I knew that would be a digital thing. Cause I was like, my hands are like not steady.
Yeah. It's hard to
It's
be so
hard to draw
technical
a
that
perfect
way.
circle or like, and I
Yeah.
was like, that's the focal point is the logo.
Right.
So I had that, and then I just was like figuring out how to overlap stuff, or like, so I penciled that one out, like by hand. I knew what I wanted, and then I go between using pens like micron pens to a brush in India ink. Often I brushed that one together because when I brush stuff and then edit it out in Photoshop, it adds a grit and a texture that
Oh yeah.
sometimes is needed and sometimes isn't needed.
Yeah.
And so in the way like the leaves look hand brushed is it looks so nice. But with that, yeah, so I drew that one by hand and I had the big circle cut out. I drew it a little bit bigger because wanted to put more detail into it. So I took a good photo of it that was contrasty. I brought it into Photoshop, adjusted the level so it was solidly black and white. And then I deleted out all of the white space. So there was no background to it. And I made it a PNG. And then I transferred it over to Photoshop, or transferred it over to my iPad in Procreate. And especially when things are getting outsourced to be screen printed, that is the best way for me to do it, because then I can have the layers and the colors and make sure that everything's lined up to be executed as a screen print. You know, it's like all the layers are all the stencils.
Yeah.
Or try to. Sometimes it gets disorganized, but I know most of the people that you and I work with are very capable and proficient designers and really wonderful to work with, so they can do that stuff. I trust Lucky House and Edgemen with my whole heart. And then so I'll go, and then so once I color it in, I kind of have to like step back. I'll pull it up on the computer because it'll be a little bit larger than on my iPad, and kind of see if there's any areas that I needed to tighten up or fix again, send it back to the iPad, fix it up there, and then kind of have a final product. Text. So if the text for this, I drew by hand first and then fixed it up in Photoshop. If I'm doing like the Sunstroke font or like the Moon Kisser font I did was really fun. I'll ink those.
Yeah. That one looked really good.
The Moon Kisser one was cool because what I used was the O's are the bottom of this bottle. Like I just inked it up and just stamped it and and made kind of like a little print, and it made it look really strange.
Yeah, that looks now that you mentioned that, those O's like are kind of like distinct in there. But they're like really cool. They all work together.
Yeah.
But do you also, like, I guess now that we're talking about like working on projects and like inspiration and stuff, do you think that this past year and the pandemic has affected you as far as like being inspired? Because I mean, I mentioned before too, like I've gone through periods of that, and I'm always going through that, like aside from the pandemic. But like I feel like this past year especially, it was a little bit more difficult because I felt like I was more inside than usual. And I've kind of learned like kind of recently that being outside and like being in like nature really does like help me. Like just being able to like feel the sun and like feel like breeze and like explore a little bit. So it's something that has helped me, like going outside and skating or like riding bikes and like just like walking like on trails and stuff really does help me. So I wanted to see if you've had similar experiences as well.
Yeah, I think for probably a large amount of people, the pandemic kind of like shot my mental health through a wall. Like,
same here.
Yeah, I feel like I take care of it as best I can. I have like diagnosed depression and bipolar, and those really kind of came out in the being inside all the time and stuff like that, and kind of pushed me away from being on top of my time management. No matter how much I physically wanted to do it, my brain wouldn't allow me to jumpstart that process. And I would get manic when people would come to me with project ideas and be like, yes, let's do it. Let's go. And then when I would come to my desk, I'd be like, just want to be in my bed. Like, I can't bring this to me. But I feel a lot of pressure leaving my body and getting better now that like things are seemingly hitting a normalcy to some degree. I work part-time at an art supply store. And I think when we think about art supply stores, we think it's mostly people like you and I shopping there. But there are also a lot of fringe characters that need to buy art supplies, and people that have unmatching ideologies or think things in the world aren't real, come in and dealing with that a lot. Like, it's surprising how many times I've had to be like, hey, do you mind if you pull up your mask? Do you mind having a mask on? It's for the safety of all the people in the store. And how many times I've been told to like fuck off and die is Jesus, like mind numbing. So like I
horrible.
I talk about it a lot. I feel like on my Instagram, but like running there's too many analogies for life that equate to running to me. And I used to skateboard a lot too, but my knees and stuff are not as good as they used to be. So I had to kind of like switch gears and take care of my body in a different way and still be active. But, I think about my day like a marathon. And so if I'm there all day, I try to move not as slow as possible, but I know it's going to be a longer day and that I need to have energy when I come home to get in the studio and get drawing and get productive in some manner. So it's like I start off the run slow and then get faster towards the end, or get into what I care about at the end of the day. So like learning how to shut my brain off in certain situations, or like let autopilot kind of take control, has been important. But yeah, sorry, I derailed this because I feel like it has helped me. The beginning was super helpful and productive because I got fired from my job, as a lot of us did, because they closed. And just I was like, oh, I have to do art full time now. That's my only source of income. Like, this is a do or die situation. Let's go. Yeah. And I took care of it. I did it for 4 months. I did it, and I dropped the ball a couple of times on certain projects. And I learned a lot. I learned a lot about outsourcing stuff. I learned about money management, which is things that are, I feel like art people aren't always good at. I learned a lot about time management, what I need for myself, how much I can take on respectably and still make for myself, and still kind of have all my have like the art, my fine art stuff, have Joeysxworld stuff, and have band stuff all kind of be one thing. And really learning what it is to be a full-time designer or full-time illustrator, and make my presence known and make it so that my reputation is still good.
Yeah, definitely. I can't like relate to like being in the store and like people telling you like horrible things, just because I have been working from home the past year. But you kind of helped me. I mean, I was kind of aware that it was happening, but like you kind of made me a little bit more aware. Like, these people are working every day and probably experience this so much, and like it's so saddening and like annoying in a way that we have to deal with this idiocy. Like, it's like the facts are here, and like people are just declining it.
Yeah, and it's tough too. Like, if you know people that have had COVID, or like the facts are there, and there's no. It's for me. It's do you like? Yes, these people probably care about other people, but like, do you care about people you don't know?
Yeah.
Or like, do you have the empathy to realize that I'm here 4 days a week, 8 hours a day? I'm more susceptible to this because I'm not just coming in and buying a marker and leaving. I'm here all day. I'm exposed to people who are like breathing heavily, breathing on me. Like, I'm up close and personal to a lot of people. And we have precautions in place and stuff to like make it safe for everybody, of course, but it's still, I'm more vulnerable. I mean,
for sure.
But so that stuff kind of burnt me out a lot. And I come home and I'm like, for the past like month or so, I've been kind of like dizzy around it. But doing talks like this and stuff too have been rejuvenating and inspiring. And it's always like when you reached out, I was like, I mean, I love everything you put out, and when you want to engage, or like when you hit me to do that shirt, I was like, oh my God, this is so cool. And so it's so thoughtful. And when other people are thoughtful and stuff, it's so much more healing and fulfilling than, like, it's like, oh, like, not that, it helps patch those holes,
Yeah, for sure. No, yeah, so I just wanted to say, just because I empathize with that, and I sorry that people have to go through this, and it's just like annoying to hear about. But I'm glad like you have this other outlet that can help balance this in everyday life. I know it definitely helps me just being able to have the opportunity to work with people that I like, and like other artists that I care about. Just really keeps me like inspired and like wanting to continue moving on.
Yeah, definitely.
And I guess just to like get towards like the end and like start wrapping things up, I just had like a couple of more like fun questions.
Yeah,
just
I got
about like
for a second.
just about like music and art. Like what are some of like your favorite albums or like favorite designers? I know we've kind of mentioned some already, but like, do you have like, a top like 5 albums or something?
Okay. Top 5. Oh man. Okay. I can do top 5 bands. I don't know if I can do top 5 albums. Fucked Up, Self-Defense Family, Lemuria. Those are like my top. Quicksand is 4. Well, can I just say Walter Schreifels is 4?
Yeah. Everything.
Like just him as a creative. And I can't think of a 5th. I'm looking behind me. What are like, and I guess instead of Self-Defense Family, I would say Pat Kinlan too. His creative output is, sometimes I can't stand him as a personality, but when like Drug Church and Self-Defense Family always hit in some strange way to me.
Yeah.
But yeah, Dose Your Dreams by Fucked Up is the record that made me want to quit my 9-to-5 job and do art full time. And they just put out a record called Year of the Horse that's 1 90-minute track.
Oh my gosh.
It's an inspiring journey of a horse. Artists I like, obviously Peanut stuff. The how funny it is, and how the idea of melancholy and artwork is in comics is so cool. Like I said, David Hockney and Alex Katz are 2 of my favorite painters. There's this painter from Cleveland, and she's like one of the most. She has some controversy over the past 2 years, but prior to that, her name is Dana Schutz. Her idea of prompts in her artwork, like she has a whole series of paintings that are, what if humans didn't have to eat food and they had regenerating limbs and could just eat their limbs? Like it. And like, so it goes through like there'll just be paintings of like a dude, like a weird Muppet looking guy eating his own arm. But then there's paintings of just like how from like, oh, I don't need human interaction because I don't need to eat. Like it goes into this like crazy isolation. Of a human. It's very strange, but like her ideas of prompts really kind of like drive me. They're playful, but then they can also get super serious. Henry Matisse is one of them. His colors and out of like those painters, most of them were pretty rough characters in terms of like
Mhm.
my moral standpoints. Like Picasso had a 14-year-old sex partner and like things like
Yeah.
that. Like I can't always, and like I always see a Picasso drawing and I'm like, oh, it's so good. You're so good.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
Matisse, not to my knowledge, has a story like that. And there's his ties to how he like famously has like the jazz series of cutouts and the ability to respond to music and make art based on that response to music. Something I think about with hardcore and like how I output what I do. Yeah,
Yeah,
so
that
those are
makes
some of
sense.
those for sure.
Yeah. What are some of the things that you're working on right now that you're excited about? I mean, I know you just put up the video speaking on those things, but if you want to expand a little bit more on that, like for example, the Sunstroke and Bent Blue split, I didn't know that was happening, which is like exciting to hear about, but it sounds like the perfect combo.
Yeah, I really like both those bands, and Tony from Bent Blue and Sean are like, I feel like two of my biggest cheerleaders in some way. So, and I saw the Bent Blue logo or like
Yeah.
that dripping text they did, and I listened to the record, or I think I saw a video of them playing a program before they had a record out, and I
Oh
followed
yeah.
them instantly. It was like, message them was like, your stuff is so cool, and they're like, your stuff is so cool. And so I was stoked when that opportunity came up because I don't like to pry all that much, or like I don't like to like I don't like to like send the blind DM like, let me do a shirt for you.
Yeah.
I'd rather it come to me.
Yeah.
But when this came up, it gave me the green light to do it. What's different about this is both sides are going to be finished artworks. There's going to be no digital manipulation on it. Well, there will
Oh,
be, but it
cool.
won't be. It'll be it'll be fix ups. It won't be a thing. It's 12-inch by 12-inch wood panels. So the cover will be one, the Bent Blue painting. One will be the Sunstroke painting. And it's going to be cool.
Yeah.
I don't know if you've listened to that band Last Gasp from Cleveland.
I don't think so. Are they
Okay.
on DGR?
No, they
Oh,
are.
okay.
They were on War Records, which is the Strife.
Okay.
But they dropped for some. I don't know the minutia of it, but they reached out to do. I tweeted in November like I want to do an animated video. It's been a long time. One band hit me up and I dropped the ball on it because I didn't realize, I forgot how much time it takes. But this one came up and I was like, and that band wasn't fitting for my style necessarily. So this one came up and it's more free reign. We talked about like inspiration source and like the Bob's Punks Get Cut, or Jay Howell did like a bunch of trash talk videos.
Oh, okay.
That are animated, and we kind of like, we're like, that's the style I want to go for, or like that, that universe. So I was like, let's go. Like,
yeah.
And then I'm my clothing stuff is hard to bounce around right now. It's fun, but it's hard to move a lot of stuff. I'm sure you kind of know like the ins and outs of clothes and records and stuff. But
yeah, it's difficult. Like for people who don't know, like you have to do like minimums usually of like 25 to 30. And like it's even it made it sound like not that much, but like getting people to commit, 25 or 30 people to commit to buying a t-shirt and like plus shipping and stuff. Like it gets difficult.
It gets
and it's costly.
It gets difficult, costly, and one of my biggest it's not a pet peeve things is I told myself when I started this journey that it was never going to be like I bought the t-shirt, buy it, like, or like I put out the shirt, you need to buy it, like that's the art. It's, for me, it's like a labor of love. The MO of me doing clothing is because the value of my artwork as an individual item is probably too pricey for anyone my age. And that's just because of the way the market of art works. I want to make, whether it be a zine or a t-shirt or a hat, you know, I want it to be something that you can wear and buy and be, you know, I own an artwork, you know, it's.
Yeah. It's difficult to like pricing, for example, like, especially like punk and hardcore, we have this, like I was mentioning earlier, this traditional like values of like t-shirts. They need to be cheap. Like you go to a show, you know, you can spend $10 or like $15 on like a shirt or a record. Like things are changing now. Like it doesn't cost that much to make those items. It costs more now. Like it should it's probably going to be more standardized to, you know, buy a 12-inch for like $20, whereas in the past you can buy for like $12. Same with 7 inches. Like it costs about $7 or like $6 to $8 sometimes to make a 7-inch, and like you can't sell them for like $5 anymore. You have to sell them like close to $10, which is seems kind of weird. And with t-shirts as well, like everyone loves comfort colors, but they're like a little bit more pricey. And if we're putting like 4 colors on them, they're gonna come out to like, you know, $13, maybe $14, and then you sell them like. It's just difficult, I think, sometimes when you're pricing stuff, because you want to make everything affordable, of course, for everyone to buy, but like you're usually not making like a huge profit on them.
No.
Yeah.
It's tough to balance. Like, will this sell out? Will I have an inventory of it? The inventory I have, will I move through it over time? And one of the big things that I started doing and the pandemic hit, so I couldn't do it anymore, were zine shows. And that was a great way to meet new people, grow the audience, and like, you know, engage in a different way and move a lot of product. It was like having the merch table at a show to some degree.
Yeah.
And that's just not feasible. So it's all online right now. And it's really interesting to navigate and figure out how social media works. It's something I really don't care to engage with all that much. I like Instagram, I like Twitter, but like fighting algorithms and all that stuff is it's a game that doesn't need to be played.
Yeah. I felt similar as well. Like I'm sure like everyone, we're not the only ones, but like everyone misses shows, of course. And like, we're all excited for them to come back. But like, just for like the example that you're giving, it was like being able to, you know, table at a show and like, you know, selling your art, but also having the ability to meet new people that you probably wouldn't be able to find like on Instagram, for example, like that are like directly in your local community. So it's just much more natural that way. Versus what we've had to deal with in the past year of like just being online and having that sort of presence. And don't get me wrong, it's like a great tool for like finding, you know, stuff that you like and like people that are like have the same interests as you. Like I wouldn't have found out about Joeysxworld, you know, if it wasn't for Instagram, for example. So like it's definitely been useful, but like you mentioned, like the algorithms and like, you know, having the pressure even to like post every day or like, you know, post like once or twice a week, even like it's still like for me, I like think about it. I'm like, why am I thinking about this? Like it shouldn't even be a thing in my head.
I know. Yeah. It's such a strange thing. And it's like, I don't know, 3,000 people following me and I get 100 likes for a thing. What is the deal with that? Like, and I'm not saying, oh, every drawing I like, you know, you follow me, you have to like it, but like, it's not that. It's that it's not getting seen.
Right.
Like that number doesn't add up. So I feel like the real world, like I have art up at a coffee shop right now, and that's been humbling, or like a good reminder of like what it is to have art in a physical space. And like every day I go get coffee there. I don't go there every day, but every time I go to get coffee there, they're like, oh man, like everybody comes in, they say like, oh, these colors, you know, made my day. Like I was so excited to see new artwork. Like they'll give me the feedback of how people responded to it. And that's like such a joy and like a reminder.
Yeah, that's awesome.
this stuff lives outside of itself in a lot of ways.
Yeah. And I think things like that have been like reminders that like people like physical things. Like recently, I've gotten like my second dose now, and like I just felt more comfortable like being able to go out and like explore a little bit more. So like I've been to like record stores and like like thrift shops and stuff like that, just like looking at like kind of trying to find like older like vintage like items. But anyway, just like being there and like experiencing like these physical items, it's just different like than like being online and like, having like a digital like I don't know, archive of like everything. But like being able to like browse a record store, like I went to in a veneer in Austin recently, and I was like browsing everything that they have there, and I was like, it just feels like amazing, like like looking through like so many records, like yeah, just like looking. They have like drawers of 7 inches, and those all like punk and hardcore. And I was like browsing through everything. Like I got American Nightmare, demo. I got a Mind Force demo, and like found some good stuff.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it just feels like exciting to be able to. I mean, hopefully soon, like once everyone is vaccinated, just like kind of get back to that normal life. And I'm sure everyone's gonna miss those things that people haven't been experiencing as much recently.
Yeah, right. I know. I know the tactile experience of record shopping is such a cool feeling that like you can't replace. Like,
yeah, absolutely. Being able to see, I mean, it's just so like inspiring for me too, just because like I design album arts a lot. So even if I don't even know the band, but the album art is appealing to me, like I'm like pulling it out and like looking at the back cover and like seeing who this is, like who designed it. And, like sometimes I take a picture on my phone so I can like go back to it and like reference later. But yeah, a lot of like it's kind of like treasure hunting in a way. Like in record stores or like thrift stores, like finding like a cool T-shirt or like finding like a just like a new sort of like art to be able to hold and like use in your daily life. It's been rewarding. I recently got like a VHS player, and I've been like getting like VHS tapes, and I bought like a square TV, and it's just all just been like kind of like reminders of youth, and like it's just like it just like feels like nice to have that these sort of like items that aren't readily available to us anymore, and like I would have everything digitally. But like being able to hold like these physical like VHS copies, like looking at the layouts, like again, like coming back to like design, like looking at like how they're presenting a movie, looking like what type that they're using on the spine, like credits and stuff. Like I just love like this like physical, pieces of art. It's just like awesome to have in your home.
No, definitely. Yeah. I've been getting like like collecting artist books and stuff and like that, and like record collecting. It's always like a new universe to dive into almost.
Yeah, record collecting is definitely its own like little universe. Like I have everything cataloged on my Discogs now. Like I know like pressings of things. Like
that's a project I need to do and never do.
Yeah. It's overwhelming like when you like actually do it for the first time and you have like a bunch of records. Like it's overwhelming, but like once you get everything cataloged, it's just nice to like look on your phone and see like, oh, I have this, like, or I don't have that. But yeah, it's cool.
Mm-hmm.
I guess to like wrap everything up, I always like to end the question like, what have you been listening to? Any new bands to check out? What have you been watching? Any new like movies or shows to check out? Recommendations?
Yeah, I'm gonna plug the Fucked Up Year of the Horse record. It's if you got 90 minutes, it's so cool. I'm gonna go to my phone.
I always have to look at my recently played to give like a good honest answer.
Was recently played. I really like the Utmost record. I think that's cool. To plug you, all the stuff they do. They're a band that is so outside the box in terms of output and like aesthetic and all that stuff.
Yeah.
A band. Oh, this is a band that I think needs to be talked about that nobody talks about is Xerxes. Xerxes. The album Collision Blonde is amazing.
Were they on No Sleep?
Yeah, they were on No Sleep. They should have been a Death Wish band, I feel like.
Okay. Yeah, I remember that name from like a while ago.
Yeah. This is what I'm reading. I'm reading the singer of that band. His name's Ben Sears. He's a comic book artist.
Oh yeah. Yeah, his work is really cool. He did the stuff for like Run for Cover a while ago. Like he did like a tote bag, I think. But yeah, his comic book stuff is really cool.
Yeah, I'm reading Young Shadow. I just got that. And then I just did a red drawing that's like white, black, and red. Like those are the only colors in it. I got it, the inspiration from that, because all the color palettes is yellow, black, white. And I was like,
yeah.
Oh. And it looks so like it looks so cool. So I was like, let's try that. The Ned Russin book, I'm like halfway through it right now. I think it's really interesting.
I have a few copies coming in soon, so I'm excited to read that.
I think that's a good collection of things that I've been listening to and looking at.
Yeah. Anything you've been watching?
Oh, I don't. We watched a lot of Ink Master.
Yeah.
I know that when we started it, I didn't know that the one dude was really problematic and bad. But
I don't know the show much.
It's just shitty reality TV about tattooing and it's just trashy reality TV. But I watched this movie Thumbsucker from the 90s or like early 2000s. That was really good. Check that out. Don't check out Ink Master.
I can speak to this just because I saw it last night, but there's a new movie on Netflix called Stowaway. That's pretty good. It's one of those like space films that people are stuck in space in the space shuttle. It's kind of like a very trendy thing that's been happening the past few years. I feel like this type of movies like that. So I'm always like kind of hesitant about like watching all of them because they usually are pretty similar. But this one was actually pretty good. I like that. It's pretty like tense and I love like thriller movies. So if you like stuff like that, I recommend. I know
it's looking at my art. I don't think you'd expect it, but I go to a lot of horror movies first. But I honestly haven't like watched a lot of TV recently.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've been watching a lot of like HBO shows. So I watch like Succession is on right now, which has been fun to watch. Legendary is like another one. I feel like Vogue and like the New York scene. Really cool. But yeah, those are like the top of things from my head. But yeah, it was great talking with you. I really enjoyed picking your brain about your
this
art.
was so fun. Thank you so much.
Yeah, of course. So anyone, if you're listening, go check out Joeysxworld on Instagram. It's Joeysxworld, I believe. Yeah. So check that out. Follow. Like I mentioned before, you probably already seen his artwork on some of the band stuff that you like. So yeah, Joey's constantly like putting out new art and like new merch and exciting stuff. So please go follow him and keep up with his art and support him. But yeah, any last things you want to shout out or anything you want to plug?
Keep an eye on that band Last Gasp. They're cool. They're super cool. They're super nice dudes. Their music is ripping, fast hardcore. And they have a lot in the works that isn't just related to me.
Cool. Definitely check them out then.
Yeah. Cool.
But yeah, thanks again. And this has been Sunday Conversations episode 2.